I think if there's no further questions, I'd like to thank our panellists. So thanks to Seamus, Stephen, Chris, Joseph and Ciara. So that just takes us now, and you can wait there guys if you want just for the last couple of minutes. It takes us to our concluding remarks. So I'm going to invite Stephen McCormack, who's the IrBEA project executive, to maybe deliver some, he's been taking notes all day, so deliver some of the key findings and summary of today's activities, and we'll complete, and he'll sign off. Thank you, Stephen.
That's grand, Sean. Thanks. Well, I won't keep you long so you don't get stuck in M50 traffic on the way home, so we'll wrap it up. But first of all, thanks to everyone for making the journey and attending. I suppose any multi-year project, we've had a lot of engagement with a lot of people, particularly the farming community. And first of all, I'd like to start by thanking them and for those who engaged with the process, which was whittled down and led to Brendan's farm being developed. So I think it was a worthwhile endeavour. So I suppose just to sum up some of the learnings I've taken away from today. So first of all, we heard from Redmond just to hear the DAFM perspective, and we all welcome the biomethane strategy which was launched this year. And we can see kind of joined up thinking between policy targets and how a farm scale AD model might work in Ireland, and the fact that there's 1 terawatt hour worth of agreements signed within that 18 first tranche capital supports to be delivered by 2050 is encouraging to see, but obviously there's the scope for more. Next up then we heard obviously from Sean and Noel about the actual project itself. So look at, I suppose, to actually get the definition of different size and scale plants was important, and how animal byproducts and self-supply of feedstock was key and component of any of the farms that we were considering for the grant aid. Noel discussed some of the technical challenges and how we went about whittling down the quite the significant interest we had from, say, 230 farmers to begin with down to 3, and that was a long process and a lot of Excel spreadsheets. I can tell you I explored a lot of electricity bills, for example, to try and whittle it down and get our handle on the statistics to make that decision. Thanks to Barry from Teagasc, obviously, who was part of our operational group. He gave key insights from the Teagasc perspective and the rural development specialist for Teagasc. Why consider AD? So why would a farmer go down this route? He also stressed the importance of the programme that is EIP and the various operational groups in doing work like this. And it's safe to say that farm scale wouldn't have been built out if it hadn't been for the EIP project. He also brought up some interesting points about the whole small scale generation scheme, which hopefully will launch in the next couple of months, which might make a bit more financial sense for some of these plants if they're considering being developed. And then we had our panel discussion, and it was great to hear from Brendan and Ben, to hear about Riverview Farm and to hear about the first of a kind, essentially, that was built out through this project. Now we will be having, as we said, as Sean said, an open day there next year, and everyone who registered for this event will ensure that you receive an invite. It'll probably be after spring anyways, when, as Sean says, the weather improves. That brought us up to lunch, and then I suppose the afternoon session, as we've heard, is all about research and development, which is necessary. And Ciara, research officer here in Teagasc, explained to us about Teagasc's MAC curve, how biogas and biomethane would fit into achieving some of our climate targets, but highlighted some of the ongoing research fields, including manure management, digestate, and the research farm at Grange, which hopefully will come into its own in the next couple of years as we try to solve and address some of these questions. It was great to hear then from Joseph from Bioelectric, from the EU perspective. So obviously we've been focused on Irish agriculture, but it's very encouraging to see the length and breadth of plants that are developed all across Europe, and particularly the clusters of farm model for biomethane that would enable smaller farm scale systems to avail of the opportunities that biomethane brings. And then finally we heard from Chris, obviously from IrBEA, very interesting work there in the manure, the solids and the liquid phase separation, and using AD to try and address some of the environmental issues we face, particularly our water quality Obviously, Northern Ireland have a slightly more developed biogas sector, but they also have slightly worse water quality issues as well. So it's very encouraging to see as well. And then finally, Seamus and Stephen, who both spoke to their various different interests within the biogas sort of technology development side of things, so on the additive side, or various different routes to market that Seamus was discussing, biomethod, mobile upgrading equipment. So we're very keen to see some of those mature and develop over the next few years. So just in summation, look, there's a huge potential for AD and biogas here, production of all scales, so not just the large industrial plants, but obviously the farm scale, which is the topic of discussions for today. But the levels of funding and support required are very different for the different scales. We've shown throughout the project there's a very, very large amount of farmer interest in the project itself and in the project outcomes. And as we said, the final project report will be available in the coming weeks, and we'll let you know and keep an eye on our social media, and you'll be able to get a copy of the report then. As I said, we'll also send you out invites to the event in the new year, or spring or after spring, out to Riverview Farm there in Galway. And then finally, just to discuss the reason for the project as it was incepted, was that a lot of people were saying farm scale AD was not a viable option here and that it couldn't be done, or it couldn't be done cost effectively. And now through the project we've kind of proven that it is both viable and feasible, but only with a capital grant and a bit of support. Now the project has identified that there are a number of items that need to be addressed, and some of these are including the planning process and the lack of consistency between local authorities and the lack of awareness. There was a series of challenges in relation to grid connection and being able to sell your electricity to the grid. There's an ongoing need for Irish innovation and research, and it's projects like the EIP projects that allow this, but also through the likes of the Grange Research Farm as well. The decision as to whether your system, your farm scale system, if you're considering it yourself, obviously get in touch. We'll have our decision tool up online in the next few weeks, hopefully. But heat and electricity generation, obviously there's not a one-size-fits-all approach. So it's only viable on certain farms under certain systems. And as we discussed, unfortunately, not all farms are suitable. So you need to have the heat and electricity demand, but you also need to be able to sell it or monetize it, otherwise there's no point. And then just finally, I'll just thank you all again for attending. IrBEA, as a membership organisation, we're always open to new members. We're also always open to new projects and new project applications. So I am the project executive, so I have people approach me about developing projects. So if it's something that you're looking to maybe explore yourselves, do get in touch, and I'd be happy to chat further. But with that, I think I will ask you to maybe consider filling out the Slido for those survey questions, which will maybe help guide our research topics for the next EIP maybe. But with that, I'll bring this to a close, and thank you all for coming.